Welcome back to the Intelligent Builder podcast, sponsored by Plutus Agents. Today, I'm joined by Alek Ivanov, the operator behind Synergy 3, a residential first home services company based in the Philly market and heavily active across New Jersey as well. Alek has a reputation for being, we'll call it unorthodox, right? High standards, high energy, which is exactly the type of mentality that makes me excited for these conversations. Got very little patience for the we've done it this way for 30 years kind of thing, which I'm the same with. So, Alec, it's great to have you on.
Thank you, and thank you for the great introduction.
Of course. Yeah, yeah. Before we jump into the good stuff, can you kind of briefly tell us what you do at Synergy 3, where you operate, how it all started?
Yes, so it started back in 2006. So March 1st is officially 20 years since I created the company, and it all started very simple. I needed to pay my bills, and people ask me, how do you get into HVAC? Well, I didn't get into HVAC. The life made me to get into HVAC. I think it's kind of funny story that I actually went to one of the clients that me and my father we did remodeling at the time, painting, bathroom remodeling, and I just asked. I was new to the country. I didn't know anybody. And I asked her, where should I go? What should I do with my life? And she said, well, you have two options. Number one, go and be a loader in the Russian's food store. Lots of hours, but only $12 an hour. And you'll probably be making $12 an hour. I would probably be making $12 an hour now if I stayed. Or you can go to, I have a guy named Igor. He does HVAC, and you can go over there, and there's growth opportunities, but he pays less. So it's like, what's HVAC? So I had no idea what the HVAC was, and I went to work for Igor. I got paid $8 an hour, or actually nine, because I had a car. So I was driving one of the senior installers that had few DUIs under his belt. A very cool Armenian guy, and he taught me a lot of things that I uh, know now. And so he taught me how to do HVAC installations, and then of just it's hard to get out of the industry that you get in. So I continued, new construction, a little bit of a new construction for a few years, and then 2008 is when moved to Philadelphia from New Jersey. That's why we're very heavy in New Jersey, because I think that I'm from New Jersey, because this is where I landed, where I lived when I came to America. And then we got into working with utility companies, and so they have a program for low and moderate income clients. And from there, this is really where the growth begin for Synergy 3.
Hey, that's awesome. I appreciate the backstory there. It gives a good perspective. So there was something we talked about in our last conversation. You're very change driven, kind of like I mentioned, and that's exactly how you get ahead nowadays, and especially in the industry that you ended up choosing. So, what are some examples of change you've recently implemented in your business?
Yes, very. You hit right on the head. Yeah, I love reading books, and some books said that if you don't grow, you die, and I agree with that. You don't. People think they're staying the same, but I think you're not staying. You're never staying the same. You either degrading. You might be staying the same for a little bit, but then eventually you die. Eventually you see these companies or they're afloat basically, but my opinion, the owners are not making money. They're making salary, so they're just paying themselves, and they have a job. They don't have a business. In order to have a business, you need to be able to go on vacation and not receive 100 calls, and you need to make a profit, not just your salary. So obviously, recent changes that were implemented are all driven around technology. And one of my, I have small thing called Wednesday Business Blitz. I recently talked about probably the first position. If I'm opening business today, any kind of business, my first hire is a CTO, which is Chief Technology Officer, is the person who understands technology and not just AI. Everybody thinks technology is AI. No, it's not just AI. It's your website, is your CRM, is your systems that you use for purchasing or billing, office setup. So it's not just oh, it's AI. No, it's not AI. It's everything, how everything combines together. And you need that person, unless it's you, unless you're the CTO, great. But in my case, I mean, I understand a lot, but I'm not like super technically savvy guy that can set this all up. And then another thing is, when you're setting this all up yourself, you have to then understand that you are CTO at this time, and you're making your salary is, if your salary is for CTO 100,000, that's what you're making right now. So you're not being a business owner, you are, you are the CTO. But as far as changes is, yes, it's bringing the AI, is building AI in-house. We actually set up a local AI computer where we're going to be hosting the products that we are creating for ourselves. And that's, another favorite phrases of mine. I appreciate that my people are seeing it and using it in some of the situations. I want the softwares or whatever apps we're using or whatever services to fit our business. I do not want to fit my business so their softwares work. And that's, if you really have to think about, not unlike the Seneca of ancient Greece, but there's wisdom in these words, because we all go 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 go, and then someone sells you something, and then you start using it and you see it doesn't really work for my business. I'm trying to fit in, and I wanted it the other way around it. I want their software to really flow in my business, so I'm not fitting that in. And it's hard to find, and this was the reason why we had to go to the route of, hiring three separate teams of developers, hiring an AI architecture, with very vast knowledge of AI and actually how, IT world is working, in order to, build these products for ourselves so they work in our business. So these are the changes, and it started with, Tim, who is our CTO now. He was the operations manager, and it started with the change that said, listen, you can do both. We need to elevate our technology. So I'm promoting you to CTO, a new position, new salary, and I'm promoting Christina to our operations manager. So yes, I've created the overhead that wasn't there, but I also created a change that allowed me and allowed my team, to put us on a path to success.
Yeah, the beginning of what you're saying is absolutely correct. I mean, all of it was, but a lot of people, business owners, they think they own a business, but they really own a job. And that's not how you should be operating. And then you're right, there's a lot of software where you have to mold to the way that workflow works when it should be the other way around. Like you're saying, some sort of custom system that you build around your own workflow, which is super smart, hiring a CTO or promoting that CTO. And you mentioned adding that overhead. So as you've kind of scaled, you've got to a decent size now. You're about 40 people, right?
Correct. Yes, and growing and hiring. All I do now, if you
Yeah.
ask me every day, what I do is hiring. But sorry, yes, please
No, yeah,
continue.
exactly. No, of course. Yeah, yeah. So we'll say 40 people now. So what if, what did you kind of underestimate in terms of growth from, busy and scrappy to a real operation with overhead people? But in terms of levels, so 10, 20, 30, 40, what was kind of the hard points there?
Very. I promise myself I won't be emotional in these podcasts. I'm like every time someone hits me some questions, I get emotional. But it's hard because I lived it. I'm no by no means I'm a wuss. I completed Ironman and multiple very hard, competed in very hard competitions. So by no means, but it just hits me because I lived it. I lived it from day one. When it was just me. I had a chainsaw. Everybody asking me why your first tool was a chainsaw. Because new construction, you cut through studs, you cut through floors with the chainsaw, and had a 91, floor Ford Explorer. So the levels, 3 million was the hardest for us to, I had a longtime partner who was with me for 15 years, and that level was the hardest, I think, to get to and stay without adding the overhead. But then it shifts towards you need to pre-hire almost. So in our business, I see that we are 6 months I don't want to say behind, but everything that I do today, I'm going to see results in 6 months. This is just how it is for our business. Again, when I speak, and people have to understand when, right, your guests speak, they speak what's going on here. Like, I'm not saying that, we're the best or this is the industry standard. I do not know how you guys or someone else operates. All I know is that what I see and I'm trying to predict is what I'm doing today. I'm gonna see results in 6 months. So from 3 to 5 million, and especially from 5 to over 10, is pre-hiring, is anticipating the growth, and yes, pulling that trigger, not when, hey boss, we have backlog of 20 installs, we need 3 more installer crews. So yeah, let me go and find them. No, you need to anticipate that and pre-hire, even if the people are on idle or if people are not 100%, the capacity is not at 100%, but when it comes, it's a much different world. We're playing a catch up now when we're in the rapid growth stage, and it's painful, it's frustrating, it adds a chaos, it destructs all the systems that are in place. So if anything, is you have to anticipate the growth and not to be afraid of adding that overhead early. So when the work comes, you're gonna thank me, hopefully, if someone's gonna listen to this and pre-hire today.
Yeah, I appreciate you being so open about that. That's really good advice too. I speak to a lot of home builders and developers, and that's a big struggle is when they have to hire ahead of revenue because a lot of builds don't start for a long time, so they're losing money for the first couple of months. But in this industry, the HVAC, home services, that can be super key, like you're saying. And then you mentioned too in our last conversation, so you had a line about being halfway to the moon, but there's other people that are still looking at the blueprints for the rocket ship, right? So what's maybe a real example of something like that you've seen?
You mean the dinosaur, the
Yeah,
dinosaurs?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I try to offend some people really, really nicely, just to be nice. Offending is yes, people are still using paper proposals, running business on Google spreadsheets or on Google Calendar, and we did that. I'm not saying that, hey, I'm Einstein here. We did that, and you know what happens when you run your schedule on Google a calendar. You have somebody, installer, let's call him, I don't know, John. John comes next morning and says, hey, am I working today? We're like, yeah, you're working. And he's like, I'm not on the calendar. We're like, oh, we forgot about you. Guess what? Because Google Calendar works for scheduling days. It's not made for scheduling people. You have to remember that there's John that needs to be scheduled. So, scheduling, and again, running multiple apps that did fraction of what we need. We've seen people not investing in tools, people requiring their technicians to buy tools themselves, creating some kind of tool spending accounts. I don't know, to me the tool is very important. It's like, if we would record this on the 1980 camera, will it do the job? Yeah, sure, but what kind of quality will you get? There's, even old vans and all of that. So if someone rolls in an old 1999 GMC Sienna or whatever, if I'm a customer, it should tell me that, hey, they're not up to speed. They're not willing to invest in their business. And if they don't have money to invest in their business, they probably shouldn't have the business in the first place. If they're not making any profit, they're just hurting the market, by being very low priced. But again, yeah, it's not being hand in hand with technology. Like AI is really, it's just something that is they hear. So they're so far. We think we're far behind because we know of competitors, especially private equity companies, or I should say companies that are owned by private equity, right? They were more efficient than us in the first place, and now imagine them using AI tools, let's say like Rilla, that records a technician conversation with the homeowner, and then service manager now can see every conversation that they have. So what do you think is going to happen? They're going to 10x their efficiency, which they were more efficient than mom and pop or a smaller company in the first place. So if you're not up to speed with those technologies, you're never gonna sell more than them. And if you're not trying to catch up with them, they'll just buy you for, they'll buy you for pennies. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of those legacy shops become the dinosaurs because they're stuck in those old ways. You know, using Google isn't bad, but like you're saying, it can cause those problems, and especially when you have scattered tools, when your stuff doesn't talk, you get lost in a lot of what's going on. It causes a lot of chaos.
Or
Now,
even honestly, no offense, or even like offices. So you see some of these guys, posting meetings, and they have 1970 panels on the walls. Again, this all on the big picture might not matter, right? It might look like we're showing off, but I think that it all comes together. What message are you sending to your guys? So when they people spend more time in this office than they spend at home. So if they're looking at the 1970, a wood panel, that pisses them off. They're sitting and they're pissed and they're not happy. They don't have a skylight, they don't have good air conditioning. They don't have again enough natural light. Everything's outdated. Everything smells, and they're not happy. We've seen or companies just flat out operating out of the garage. I passed by on the way here. There's a plumbing company near where I live, and it's a garage in some kind of little house near the garage. Where can they grow? I don't know, but in 13 years that I live there and I pass by every day, they had 5, 6 trucks, they still have 5, 6 trucks because there's no room to grow. And then if you would see in their website, it's like how are they getting any work? It's just unbelievable. But I mean, they're there, but they're not growing.
yeah, no, definitely. There are so many things that could be changed and modernized at all times. You need to be change driven just like you are. But what, say there's a dinosaur listening, right? What are some common things you see dinosaur owners still doing today? And then what are maybe the first modernization they should implement?
I mean, I think I probably go a little bit to the side of what you ask, but it starts with, with the owner. It starts with being open-minded. And I wasn't. And you asked me before we got on the camera, it's for me, it started 2018. Before 2018, oh my God, I thought I knew everything. And then year after year, I was like, no, this year we're going to double. Nothing happens. Then next year we're going to double. Nothing happens. We're staying the same. And I would blame everybody. I would blame the market. I would blame the contracts. I would blame the guys. I would blame everybody, but not myself. And then in 2018, sorry, again, when I started looking at myself, I was like, maybe you have to do something different, guy. Maybe it's you a little bit. Met Gary Alekis, and really when he kind of opened my eyes that no, there are companies that are making money. It's always the premise that 3, 4, 5% profit is what these HVAC companies made, and 95 or 90% of them, yes, they do. And that's why they don't grow and they die. But then he's like, no, there's companies that make 25% net profit, and there's $50 million companies and $100 million companies. I thought at first I didn't even believe him. I was like, no, he's full of shit. Excuse my language, but he wasn't. And when I really start to work on myself and change myself, and again, be open-minded and be okay with that I don't know all the answers. And yes, you have to pay someone how much for one day, but then where would I get that information? Yes, it's expensive, but I got the KPIs and I got the information that otherwise I wouldn't have, simply. But again, it starts with finding the right consultant, the right guru. I think I was lucky that I met him, and I met him through our distributor, because distributor dealer meeting, he was invited, and I even wrote the article for ACHR News that, hey, when you go to these meetings, don't just go to because there's free food, there's free coffee, you could just bullshit for a day. No, go and listen, and it might change your life, because my life was changed 180 degrees. And that's, so I think you have to start with yourself. Really look at yourself. You have to be like a high performer. You have in all aspects. And honestly, no offense, but if I see the owner that is not in shape, guys, better luck to you and your company, because this guy is low energy. This guy cannot even take care of himself, and you want this guy to take care of you guys. If in today's day, there's so much information about how can you stay healthy, how can you stay sane, and how can you be a high performer. And when people not doing that, again, at the leadership, I would not work for that company, because that person is just not going to be capable of taking this company to the next level. So it starts not only with internal change, open mindedness, but also, yes, health and performance, because the growth requires insane amount of energy. It just like it's gonna, it's gonna punch you. And people also don't realize that what it costs, what's the sacrifice. And I also was the same way. I thought we're gonna grow with me making the same input, and it wasn't happening. So I need to increase my input, and in order to do that, I needed to be more healthy. I need to be more energetic. You ask me, hey, where's your, I'm standing right now. I was standing because in 2017, I was sitting and I would fall behind my desk. I would just fall asleep and I would be drooling and I was like waking up. I was like, oh my God, what if someone walks into that office and I'm sleeping behind my desk because I'm just tired, because I didn't have any energy. And once I really start to, start trying to take care of myself first and be at the high level, this when I got into Ironman, and then all the endurance, cycling. I did like did some crazy things because I had the energy. And today, the same way, I even have to be in a higher shape. So yes, I have dedicated time for my physical activities that are non-negotiable. Just not. I don't care what's gonna happen outside. This time of day and this day, I'm exercising. That's it. It's non-negotiable. I don't care who wants to meet with me. If the building is on fire, like I'm not missing it. Those are really non-negotiable. So if, the advice is to start with yourself and all the aspects of what can you change here and in your health, because there's no way, or I mean, if you're gonna grow not doing that, you're probably gonna burn through. Like I burned through 2 marriages. That was the cost, because I wasn't like there mentally and physically to be able to hold this and be okay at home. So I was bringing that shit from here home, and pushing on my first wife and then on my second wife. So the cost for me was very high. So now I'm about to get married the third time, and I'm glad I'm doing it right. Very proud of that. That I took that experience, very expensive experience. If you guys never been divorced in America, don't get divorced. Better, better, better stay married. Very expensive. So huge advice. So it costed me dearly, and now I really learned my lesson. So I'm doing it right.
Appreciate you sharing all that. For anyone listening, go back and watch the last, 5 or 6 minutes.
Thank you.
Everything he just said. This guy, that's a top operator mindset. That's the exact kind of mentality you need to have, because you're right that if an owner isn't growing, the business isn't growing, and it's all a mentality shift. You're so right in that too. You got to be healthy. If you see a business owner who isn't in shape, they don't have the right perspective on building a business, because you need to build yourself along with the business, or there's going to be no change.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the resistance to change comes from fear, right? I mean, yeah, you've been doing something that works, so okay, it works, whatever, but it's afraid of change because it can be complicated and it can get messy, but there's
It's
gonna be
yeah,
ways around that.
it's scary. So a couple of things to what you just said. One of my favorite phrases of all time is a healthy man has many goals, a sick man has only one. So that's something that on the top of my mind. And in a second, I uh kind of. I was thinking about the first. I forgot what. Sorry. Yeah, you said about you said about fear, and yes, it's very scary. Growth is scary, but same thing. I'm using. I like the Seneca, and they ancient Greeks. They always, not always, but they would tell you, okay, think about, as far as fear, think about worst case scenario. What the worst thing that could happen? And then if it's not like death, then to them, is everything okay? Then, okay, I was just, talking to my fiance, said, okay, I'm going all in. What the worst that could happen if it doesn't work? We probably still can afford our house. We have savings, we have some investments. So yes, it's going to be very painful if we lose it, but we're not going to die. We're not going to be homeless. Our kids are going to be fine. So it's okay. The alternative of succeeding is much better than fear of not trying and fear of not going all in. So I think, yeah, if like in some instances, yes, I'm afraid because I could see money coming in and then as much or if not more coming out. It's the desks, it's the chairs, it's the remodel, it's the trucks, we're buying 3 cars at the time. Everybody wants to get paid more and in technology and tablets and this and that. And yeah, it's scary, but what is the alternative? And I know that the alternative, staying the same, is not the alternative, because I have a lot of young guys and girls that are here for growth. And if we're not growing, then I know they're going to leave. And I'm also here for growth because I'm curious. I want to see how far can we go? To what level can we take this organization?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The worst case scenario, you're alive. You might be in your parents' basement, you might be at a friend's couch, but you're alive. And
Correct.
like you're saying, the reward way outweighs the risk there. Like the reward is it's unlimited, honestly, especially when you're an entrepreneur. But I love that you mentioned Seneca twice. It's great to study the stoicism, the mentality there. That's gonna benefit you, even just in life in general, but in business too. But do you have an example of maybe a change you made where it was like, if I don't change the way we run this, I'm capped. Like there's no going further.
Yeah, it was 2020, where when we've been operating on Google Spreadsheets, QuickBooks, Google Calendar, Dropbox, and we were looking for really the at first I was thinking about CRM, but then I started really thinking about ERP, which is enterprise resource whatever program it stands for, I guess. And we were in between Salesforce and Oracle NetSuite. Ended up going with Oracle NetSuite. So when we speak to some of these gurus, or Service Titan was trying to sell us, and like, what are you using, guys? I was like, Oracle NetSuite. He's like, well, you're the first company I've ever heard using Oracle NetSuite for HVAC. I said, well, I'm either the dumbest or the smartest, one way or another. And this was the change when I understood, there was critical moment that, again, investment was big, was more than we could have afforded at a time. But I understood that if I'm not pulling trigger today, I probably will never will would stay at that level. And Oracle was very painful start. It took 3 to 4 years really to fully using it. We're still improving it today, but now I'm logged in. With my login, I see all financials, I see inventory, I see schedule, I see reports, dashboards. I can go to anybody's role, see how are they doing, KPIs for guys, but mainly, financials. The QuickBooks integrations was something, again, I didn't like. Again, I felt that I had to fit my business to them. And also customization. Service Titan in 2020 wasn't as customizable. Again, I don't know if they're customizable now. If they are, great. But that time it was strictly residential. Hey, I did your service call, give me $500. And we were working what's called a third party billing. So when we bill, let's say utility, they pay us for work that we did at a client's home. So client is really not a client; it's just a place where we perform work. And Service Titan, didn't have that flexibility and customization that we needed it. So, yeah, if any, I would say that switching from um, analog systems, analog semi-digital systems to really fully digital world.
Well, that's huge. That's going to be a massive shift no matter where you are in your business. But then you were kind of saying earlier that some people don't even have basic software. They're just working off scattered tools and the simplest analog, paper stuff. But you've got the local AI, internal and external sources to working on improvements at all times. So what are some of the technologies that you use, obviously besides the Oracle, that have been highest leverage? Maybe in automation or something you've standardized so far?
I really like our Google Workspace account. We've upgraded it to, I don't know the name, but we've upgraded it to a different level. For example, if I send you a Google Meet link, it will have the Gemini notes available. It's very helpful. But with that, we were able to connect Google Drive to our NetSuite. So when our technician goes to the property and takes all the photos. Before we were working with Dropbox, but Dropbox was much more expensive and security features are a little bit cumbersome. But here, because all of our technicians, have our work email, which is Gmail, and the drive has much more storage capacity that is included with this price. So we don't have to pay another subscription to Dropbox for storage when we have storage with Google. So now when they go in the client's profile, there's already a Google Drive folder automatically created with that address. So when they need to upload photos, it's already there. So that's been very useful and helpful. And I think that's just, kind of first thing that came to my mind when you asked me this question.
Yeah, yeah, it keeps things simple and in one place. That's always very helpful. What about in terms of like a technology that's genuinely saved you time or reduced mistakes?
Save time. I think I could save that. We've recently completed it. AI agent that does permit applications. So, for example, in state of New Jersey has what's called universal building subcode form. So, if you go to any township, your construction jacket is the same, your mechanical subcode is the same, your plumbing subcode is the same, and we have a person who had to copy and paste, take client's information from NetSuite, copy and paste into this subcode, and then repeat it 1,000 times. So we've created an agent that once the customer is created in NetSuite, and you click a button, hey, start permit process, it takes all this information, puts it in the proper places. So that is phase one. Phase two, now we're looking at so for this agent to recognize what equipment is being proposed and print those specifications for that permit, because we have to submit specifications for the inspector. When inspector goes to inspect the job, he needs to compare what's installed to what says in specifications. And then the phase three would be printing USPS label, because a lot of times we mail those permits out. So it's just, it looks like, it's just, what is it? A couple minutes to print a label. When you do that, hundreds of times, you multiply it by that, how many minutes this person spent. And like you said, mistakes, maybe, missed the spelling or missed put a different town or zip code, boom, goes in the wrong place, permits gets lost, and you have a big headache on your hands. So I think this was a very useful tool. I'm actually looking forward to selling it to other contractors very soon, because it's been it's been a game changer for us, for this particular person and for this position. And again, just scalability. If you think about, I'm thinking about AI not in terms of how can I get rid of everybody. I'm thinking about how can I keep a main person, and then when I scale, they're just going to use agent to help them scale, and not, yeah, unfortunately, not hiring more people. Yes, true, but keeping maybe one more for this department or other department, but not 5, 6, 7, 10. But keeping core people, and because you still have to verify, you still have to do certain things. But the really sort of stupid, like, time wasting tasks, let the robot do, right? Why not?
That's the exact mentality you should have when implementing AI in your business. And in that whole time you were saying that, I was literally thinking that's something you could productize, the permanent agent. That's such a massive just issue in the industry that I've seen. So that's super awesome.
Thank you.
Good luck with the rest of the development there
Thanks.
and productizing it. That's super cool. Yeah, so we could talk all day, honestly, but I wanted to kind of shift to the future, right? So you're very change driven, efficiency, mentality. You're halfway to the moon, right? So I want to talk about what's next. So say we're about to enter 2027, right? You're looking back at 2026. What makes you classify this year as a success?
I would say we just signed a lease for another office in Northern Jersey. So success would be having this office, operating as a standalone almost entity, as a dependent office, not independent or dependent, but interdependent. And I'd say 30% growth is what I'm targeting. But I think we're capable of more. It's gonna be hell. No one's gonna be happy in 2026, but my goal is 2026 corporate party in Miami, at the boat. So I'm thinking when we're in Miami on the boat, I'm gonna remind them and say, "Yeah, it was tough, huh? But let's drink that champagne and let's go crazy, because again, we're known for the great culture and having an ability to have fun. You if anything, tell you have to have fun here or there, or more often, because the work is hard, especially for the field guys. So if it's just work, but they'll just leave at some point, or they'll be just all miserable. Success for me would mean that office interdependently operating, and we grew at least 30%.
That expansion is going to be pretty key in your growth. And I love how ambitious you are. That 30%, that's going to be awesome. And, like you said, always got to have fun. That party in Miami, that's going to be pretty great. You got to make sure you have that successful year to make that a successful party, right?
Yeah, it,
But
it it costs money, so we have to put that aside.
yep,
Boats ain't
exactly.
cheap. I would
Yeah,
have to
no,
fly.
exactly, exactly.
I have to fly everybody, and I don't want to fly my people on Spirit at 6 o'clock in the morning. I want to fly them on American during during
Oh,
the
yeah.
day.
Yeah, full luxury experience. Yeah, that's what it's got to be. I asked this question to a lot of the guests, not all of them, but a lot of them. So I'd like to hear your answer to this. So let's say you have a magic wand, right? And you can erase or fix a bottleneck or add something into the workflow that you think would double your momentum or give you a shit ton of time back. What would that one thing be?
The best HR person available in America. That would what made this for me. But just the best. Someone that is obsessed with. I actually renamed this position into team member success, because HR had a bad rap. And if you think about HR at the core, is being there for the people, care for the people, and caring for their success in the company, for their having that roadmap and helping them grow by tracking their KPIs, by tracking their educational progress, by tracking their professional growth, having reviews, having performance reviews, being part of the meetings, being sometimes drive that meetings. Someone who is pretty much almost as obsessed with this as I am, but I'm being pulled into 20 different things, and I am becoming that bottleneck, and I'm calling myself the worst HR in the industry. No one laughs at it anymore, so it tells me they do agree with this statement. So for me today would be someone who's really great at this.
Yeah, that's going to be essential, one, for just visibility in the business, but two, just for your leadership capabilities. So you're right. That would be huge.
If you know anyone, please.
Absolutely, I'll
In
refer them.
March, when I'm ready now, I'm just like end of March is when I have this on my to do list to either pull the trigger if we're if I see that our trajectory is positive, and if not, wait a little bit. But it's one of the big goals for me this year is to find that person, hire and train.
If I come across anybody, you're the first guy I'll talk to. I got you there.
Thanks.
I want to ask you one more question though, because I love the mentality you have. So let's say 2 years down the road, where do you think this industry is heading? But in terms of what will the best operators be doing in 2 years compared to today?
They will be the best trainers that exist because I'll be honest, we're not getting people with experience. And from what I know from others, they don't get it too because the best guys are working, right? If you're working for big guys, they pay you well. They, it might not be a good best culture, but they pay you well there. They kind of take care of you. Those people are there for years. They're not looking to leave. We just recently had a person who worked for one of the competitors for 16 years. They were bought out by private equity, and now he started to looking for work because he didn't like their ways. But I think the best guys is the best trainers that understand that, again, newcomers have no experience. Sometimes they have trade school experience, which is pretty much same as no experience. And those poor guys, when we kind of break it down to them, the guys, that diploma is worthless. Why? Because we expose them to what they've been doing, and they didn't even touch this at those schools, which is also, this is a separate topic. But so I think, yeah, you have to be able to professionally train your people and train them fast. That would be way of growth and way of successful growth.
Yeah, you're right that that's a totally different conversation too. With the trades gap and apprenticeship programs are great. Working with community colleges or not community colleges, like trade schools to get them right out of there, stuff like that. But that's awesome. That's great advice. Thank you, Alec. This has been really great. I appreciate you being so open about everything. The growth curve, the mindset, mentality, and then how you're how you're really thinking to get ahead. It's some great stuff.
Thank you.
But before we close out, though, where should people connect with you? You or Synergy 3?
I'm active on LinkedIn, right? I post my Wednesday business blitz there. I also do a thing that's called Friday Wisdom. It's more for personal growth and development. This is also started as me presenting to my team, right? Part of what you said, owner should learn something and share with his team. And I found that that was my way of sharing through presentations, through direct presentations on Friday. So it's called, Friday Wisdom. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, Alek Ivanov. Instagram, Synergy 3 is active on both on LinkedIn and Instagram. So I promise I'll reply unless you're a solicitor. But other than that, yeah, I promise I would reply.
I'll link some of that below so people can find you pretty easily. But for everyone listening, thank you for tuning into the Intelligent Builder. If you found this episode valuable, share it with another builder or operator in your circle, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Alec.
Thank you, Owen.